Hello, Miss Tato. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. First off, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I understand that you have a really busy schedule, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tamandong. I appreciate any help that I can have with this student.
No problem. So, what are some of your concerns with the students? Let's start off there.
Well, Michael he's a sixth grade student in my language arts class. And since the beginning of the year, he's been extremely distracted and off task during class. He's talking with his peers, watching videos on his Chrome. He tries to listen to music on his AirPods. He fidgets in his chair with various objects, constantly asking to use the restroom. He doesn't complete his work assignments, which is resulting in failing grades. I feel like I'm just constantly redirecting him and it takes away from my instruction. It's also affecting other students and their work progress because he causes a lot of distractions.
Okay, thank you for that. This is really good information to have, and I'm just writing it down as we kind of go along. It gives me real good examples of some of what the behaviors are looking like in your classroom. And I can see where his behaviors would be frustrating you for you and the class, especially when Michael was talking to his peers, watching videos, fidgeting, or listening to his music. Do you know if Michael is taking any medications or has he been diagnosed with any disabilities that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of. During his last conference with his mom, she mentioned that she was discussing taking him to a pediatrician because his attention and focus was a concern. But I never heard back from her, and I'm not aware of any other conditions or disabilities other than the behaviors I mentioned. I don't see anything else out of the ordinary. He doesn't receive any special services that I know of.
Okay, good. This is really good information. Thank you for that. How about his attendance? Can you describe his attendance pattern?
Yeah, his attendance is actually really good, and so far this year he's had 2 excused absences, and he was tardy a couple of times in the morning, but overall his attendance is good.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. When we get a little bit more into the interventions and observations, gathering good data will help us if his attendance is consistent. So I wanted to get a better idea of what you see and when you see these behaviors the most. Can you take me through an example of a situation when Michael seemed really distracted?
Yes, I have one situation in mind. During language arts, we read independently for about 10 minutes, and then we discuss it as a class. What we read and we answer questions about the text. And right after I gave instructions on what to do, Michael started playing a game on his Chromebook. I told him to close the Chromebook and place it on his desk. He picked up the book but started talking to his neighbor and laughing. I walked over, I redirected him again. A few minutes after, he got out of his seat and he started walking around the class saying he needed to stretch. I had to tell him to stretch at his desk, and for the entire time, he never read his assignment and couldn't participate in group discussion because he didn't complete the reading. I moved his seat closer to me so that I can observe him more, but it hasn't changed anything. Then this is something that actually goes on the entire period, and it's a struggle to get him to complete any of his assignments, and most of his work is either blank or only partially completed.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this helps a lot. So what you said is that during class, Michael will be given an assignment, and during this time, he will play games on his Chromebook, talk with other students, and get up and walk around. And his behaviors are causing Michael to turn in blank assignments or incomplete assignments.
Yeah,
He's had seat changes too, and you've also given him verbal redirections actually. And you mentioned that these behaviors are pretty much consistent throughout the whole period. And I just want to echo back what you were saying. So I want to make sure that I got everything correct. So does this sound like an accurate description of what's going on?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, tell me what you would like to see more of in your class from Michael. Like what specific behaviors would you like to see increase or decrease?
Well, for one, I really would like to see Michael complete his readings and finish his assignments. I also want him to stop talking to his friends when he's supposed to be completing his work. And it would be helpful if he would stop opening his Chromebook and watching videos or playing games. I really would like him to stay seated instead of walking around the classroom and focus on his readings. In a perfect world, I'd like to see him read for an entire 10 minutes and complete all the readings and the questions.
Okay. So just to echo back and summarize, you want Michael to increase his readings during independent reading times, be able to increase the number of questions he answers on the assignments, and you want to see talking to friends, watching videos, and playing games on his Chromebook, and getting out of his seat decrease. Does that sound about accurate about what you want to see in the classroom?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Which behaviors are most important to you? So if you were to, in order for you to effectively provide instruction to Michael in your classroom, how would you rank the behaviors that we just talked about? So from most important to least. So I know most of them are important. All those behaviors that you just mentioned, those are really, really important. But if you can just rank them for me, how would you rank them?
I would say the most important would be decreasing getting up out of his seat, then talking to his peers, fidgeting at his desk, and then playing on his Chromebook. And after that, it would be completing his readings and then finishing his written assignments. Getting him to even start reading or start assignments would also be helpful.
Okay, great. Yeah, these are all reasonable, and I think you really did a good job ranking them. First, you'd like to see his off-task behaviors decrease, and we can lump getting out of seat, playing on the Chromebook, and talking to peers, fidgeting. We can lump those all as off-task behaviors. And then you'd like to see an increase in his reading and finally completing his assignments. You know, I think all these behaviors go hand in hand. You'd like to see Michael's off-task behaviors decrease, and instead you want those behaviors replaced with completion of his reading assignments and completion of his classwork assignments. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now, you mentioned that the off-task behaviors occur the entire class period. Are there times when the behaviors are more frequent than others? Is there any time when he actually does his assignments? Can you go into a little bit of detail into that?
Yeah. So it feels like the whole period, but I tend to see it more when he's given independent work, like when he's given the reading assignment. I also see the behaviors when we're answering questions about the reading and answering questions as a group. And then he's expected to write them down and turn them in. And I see mainly during these occurrences.
Okay, great. And about how long would you say these behaviors last?
Probably from the time he's given the assignment all the way up until the end of the period. He's either talking, playing on his Chromebook, asking for something, walking around, fidgeting, or just staring off into space.
All right. So, and along with the other behaviors you mentioned, he also just sits quietly. That's good to know. Is that something that he does? I wanted to make sure that I heard that correctly.
Yeah, yeah, he will just sit sometimes too.
Okay, so, and how long after he is given an assignment before he starts engaging in one of those behaviors?
Almost immediately after I give him the instructions.
Okay.
I feel like he avoids any type of work given to him, and the only time he has completed something was when I worked with him directly one-on-one during lunch or after school, but I can't do that all the time.
No, I get that. I totally understand. You do a lot as a teacher as it is, and giving up additional free time can be really frustrating. So I think that it's possible that we can find a way to decrease some of these behaviors and increase others without you having to give up additional time. And it can be done during class time. So just to recap, the off-task behaviors often occur during independent work, when given assignments involving reading, and during times when Michael needs to answer questions as a group and during his writing assignment. The behaviors usually occur from the time he's given the assignment until it's time to turn in the assignment. And the behavior occurs immediately right after he's given instructions, correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay. So what happens before the behaviors occur? What's going on before then?
yeah. Usually he's off task during our reading times. So right before that, I'm going over instructions for the assignment, what we'll be reading, and what to do after the reading.
And besides when you have worked with him one-on-one, has there been any other times where he's completed his assignments when the behaviors were less frequent?
Um, on a couple of Fridays during the last 10 minutes of class, I usually let the students have free time on their Chromebooks if they finish all their work for the period. And there were a few times where he was able to participate because he actually completed some of his work. So he didn't complete all of it, but it was enough to let him participate.
Okay, so that's really good to know. So it looks like there's a couple motivating factors there. And just from talking to you, it seems like he likes being on his Chromebook. That seems like that's something that he likes. We may be able to use that later. So just to take note of that. I'll take a note of it too. What do you see happen after that behavior occurs?
Okay, so after he has a blank assignment that does or doesn't get turned in, I've contacted his mom as well, but she isn't providing much feedback. So I don't think he's being held accountable by her. Other times I've sat and talked with him or just redirected. Sometimes he'll pick up the book or his pencil after I talk to him, but after a few minutes, he's back to doing other things.
So just to summarize that, I know it's a lot, but I want to make sure that I'm echoing back what I've heard. He's more likely to engage in off-task behaviors right after you've given instructions on reading assignments. And then from that moment on, he engages in undesirable behaviors. And as a result, you redirect him. He does little to no reading and turns in incomplete assignments if he does at all. Does that sound about right? Does that sound about like a good description?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay, so we both agree we want to see those off-task behaviors decrease and increase in completing his assignments in reading and writing. Right now, his off-task behaviors are very frequent. Our goal is to decrease as much as possible. So those off-task behaviors, we want to try to decrease them as much as possible. How frequently would you be comfortable with Michael being off-task during the period when he is reading and completing assignments? For example, most kids at some point get off task and they can be redirected really easy without being a significant problem, like your average student. So what would be acceptable frequency without it being a problem?
If Michael can get his behaviors down to 2 instances of me redirecting him, I think it would be fair. I'm not sure how many times I have to redirect him, but I know it has to be more than 5. And I only need to tell my other students once or twice, and they usually follow through.
So, okay, good. Two seems fair. 2 seems about average. As far as an increase in completing his assignments, you said he does very little to almost none. So what would you say is an acceptable increase for him completing his assignments?
I would like him to finish all of it.
Okay, yes, of course. Yes, I get that too. It would be ideal for all students to have their assignments completed fully. In the end, that's where we eventually want Michael to be, want him to complete all of it. But based on the behaviors you described and for the length of time Michael has engaged in those behaviors, what would be an acceptable amount just based on what we know about Michael? How much improvement would you need to see to feel like Michael's making some sort of progress, like really good progress?
If he was able to complete 80% of his work, I'd be impressed.
Okay, so we agree 80% would be reasonable, right? So let's start with 80%. So now that we have a better idea of Michael's behavior and what behaviors we want to increase and decrease, we need to gather some data just to help us establish a baseline and hopefully decide whether any plan we initiate later has been effective. This record will also help us determine how frequently the behaviors are occurring, how much of his assignments that he is completing, and it may give us some clues as to the nature of the problem. So we want to make sure that the process is as feasible as for you as possible. So I'd also like to come in to observe Michael to get a better perspective of some of his behaviors. Can you give me a few days that would work for you where we can do that?
Yeah, next week, Monday and Tuesday probably would work best for you. And I have Michael during 3rd period, and that's like from 9:50 to 10:40. And should I be collecting any data?
Yes, good question. So let's take a tally of how many times Michael is off task from the time you give him his assignment instructions until the time he turns it in. So for every time you see him off task, I'm going to have you make a hash mark for each occurrence. I have a data sheet that I will give to you. to make it easier for you to collect. So for each day, record a hash mark for each time Michael is off task, and the hash marks for each day is observed. It would be most beneficial if you would be able to collect those data for 5 consecutive days. Is that doable for you?
Yeah, that'll work.
So let me show you what I'm talking about really quick. So it'd be something like this, where you provide the date, you tally the occurrences, and then you get a total, okay? And then also what I need you to do is go ahead and give me the percent of work that he's completed for that day, okay?
Okay, they complete and turn in their assignments in Google Chrome, so I can just download them. It's gonna be quick and easy.
Okay, perfect. So great. Well, let's start collecting our data on Monday. We'll continue collecting the data every day until Friday. I'll come to observe on that Monday and Tuesday during third period. And then after we collect the data, we will meet again to discuss what we recorded. What time of day works best for you to kind of meet again to discuss what we found?
March 28th, about the same time, about 11:30. It's my prep period, so we can meet in my classroom.
Okay, perfect. That works for me too. I'll put it in my calendar. Thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule. I know you're really busy, so I just want to make sure that I thank you for that. And we really want to discuss Michael's behavior and implement a plan for him. So thank you for meeting with me.
You're welcome. See you next week.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Tatro. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks again for meeting with me today and taking the time so that we can kind of review the data that we both collected on Michael. It's going to be really helpful for developing our intervention plan for him. Did you have any questions before we get started about anything, data collection or anything that we discussed last week?
No, it was pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. So as you know, I came in to observe Michael a few days last week. Each observation period lasted about 30 minutes. When I came in to observe, I was looking for the behaviors that we discussed previously, those off-task behaviors, getting on his Chromebook at an inappropriate time, just talking with peers, fidgeting at his desks, making a request to leave the desk, or leaving his desk to walk around. And based on my observations, it looks as though Michael was off task with one or more of those behaviors on 9 occurrences on the first day, and then 11 occurrences on the second day that I observed him. Now, again, each observation period was for about 30 minutes. So he was off on average 9 to 10 occurrences during that 30-minute time span. Would you say that these data are consistent with what you've seen in the past too?
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate.
Okay, well, great. Now let's take a look at some of the information that you collected. I know I asked you to observe Michael last week as well, and I want to thank you too for doing that, by the way. I know you're really busy, but like I said, the data is really important, and it's going to help us. So along with off-task behaviors, I also asked you to get data on work completion as well over 5 consecutive days. Do you have that available?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I did track his off task behaviors, as you can see, with the data sheet that you gave me. So on the first day, Michael had 8 occurrences of off task behaviors and only completed 10% of his work. On the second day, he had 11 total off task behaviors and did not complete any of his assignments. And on the third day, he had 10 occurrences with only 10% completion. The fourth day, he had 11 with 20% completion. And on the fifth day, he had 5 occurrences and completed half of his assignments.
Thank you. This is excellent data, Ms. Chatro. Thanks for putting this together. I see that on the 5th day, he did do a little bit better. He was only off task 5 times, and he did complete half of his work. Is there something different, or what do you think was different about this day compared to the other days that you noticed?
Yeah, that was obviously the Friday. And like I mentioned before, I usually tell everyone in the class that if they finish their assignments, they get free time on the Chromebook. And so on Fridays, I try to give them a little bit more of an incentive, and we call it Fun Friday. So towards the end of the class, I allowed Michael to participate if he was able to do at least half of his assignments.
Okay, that's an excellent way to encourage your students. I like it. I really do. So the only difference was giving the class a little bit of incentive. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. So let me just reflect and summarize. Michael was engaged in off-task behaviors on 8, 11, 10, 11, and then 5 occurrences on each consecutive days. He ranged from 0% completion all the way to 50% completion on those days, and appeared to do better on the last day when you gave the class a little bit of incentive. So the data that you shared, it actually appears to be consistent with what I observed as well. Would you say that these data are consistent with what you typically see from Michael?
Yeah, pretty much a good sample of what I get from Michael regularly. Yes.
Okay, so great. So during my observations, I noticed that your class was doing a video journal on their Chromebooks as well. And then right after that, you assigned them a reading, discuss the reading as a class, and then give them some questions about the reading. And it appears that he is most likely to engage in those off-task behaviors when he begins his reading assignment, like right after you given him assignments. But he does appear to be engaged in his journaling, his video journaling on his Chromebook. How does that sound about accurate?
Yeah, so the students do a quick video journal about different topics throughout the week. Michael really likes to do video journals, and actually anything that involves his Chromebook, he likes to engage in. But yes, he's most likely to avoid any work involved with reading and writing.
Okay, okay. And I also noticed when Michael was off task, you would reprimand him or redirect him to get back to work, or you would say like, please read your book. Does this sound typical?
That's a daily occurrence, and it's pretty exhausting.
Okay, no, I can totally understand that. Besides redirection and reprimands, are there any other consequences that Michael is given when he's off task that you would have done during your observations?
Yeah, so I've made a few phone calls home, and I made him come in during lunchtime or after school to complete more of his assignments.
Okay, so based off that data that you collected, it appears he'll engage in those various off-task behaviors about 5 to 11 times during your class, which usually occurs during his reading and writing assignments, right after you give him instructions. Behaviors usually don't occur during preferred activities like his video journaling or anything involving his Chromebook. And he appears to complete more of his assignments and have less occurrences when the class is provided with like an incentive, like you do on those Fun Fridays. And then at times when he doesn't complete his assignments, he will gain one-on-one attention from you during lunch or after school in order to finish those assignments. So he also gets attention from you when you provide him some redirections or reprimands. So does that sound like an accurate description too?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay, thanks for confirming. Well, great. So it looks like the observational data that we have both gathered appear to be valid, appears to get a good indication and representation of Michael's behaviors in class. I know when we last met, we discussed what behaviors we wanted to see increase and decrease. When I asked you what an acceptable amount of Michael's off-task behaviors were tolerable for you not to be a problem in class, you stated that you'd like to see those behaviors decrease to 2 occurrences, those off-task behaviors. And then based on the data that we collected, we're seeing about 9 occurrences during class on average. Do you think that 2 occurrences would still be attainable for Michael? Do you still think that's still fair?
I do feel it's obtainable for Michael because I've seen him do well in certain situations. So I believe he can actually meet that goal.
Okay, perfect. And we also looked at his work completion. And you stated that you would like to see Michael's work completion increase to 80%. I know we said 100, but we're kind of just gauging on what Michael can do. So you did increase it you want to see an increase to 80%. So based on the data that we both collected, actually what you collected for his work completion, it looks like on average, he's doing about 18% of his assignments on average. That's a large gap to be met. So we kind of have to take that into consideration when we see what we want from him. We don't want to create a goal that is too difficult to reach and set Michael up for failure. So ideally, we want him to his goal to be reasonable and obtainable, somewhere slightly beyond where the behavior currently is, which, as we agree, is around 18%. But do you think that 80% continues to be a reasonable and obtainable goal for him, from the data that we've collected?
Well, now that we have the data, 80% may be a little high, but I do want to stretch him because I know that he can do it.
Okay, so based on what you and I know on Michael, mainly you, because you have him most of the time, he appears to have little support at home too, and require a lot of attention in class. So just based off his behaviors and what we know about him, what percentage would you be comfortable with knowing that he has a lot of gaps to fill compared to his average peers? What percentage would you be comfortable now that you have that information?
I would be comfortable with 70% completion. I really think he's capable.
Okay, so we can agree he needs to increase work completion from 18 to 70%. So just to sum it up, we want to see a decrease of off-task behaviors go from 9 occurrences down to 2. We also want Michael to have a 70% completion rate on his assignments. That's an increase from 18%, an increase up from 18%. Do we agree on those tentative goals?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so those are good numbers. I think that those are doable. So great. Now that we have our behavioral goals defined, our next step is to provide Michael with some support on meeting these goals. So I'd like to meet with you again in the next few days to come up with a plan to help Michael increase the desired behaviors we discussed and decrease the behaviors that prevent effective progress for him. Also for you and your class. I want to be mindful of your time. So this process may take a little bit more time. So we can schedule another day to meet. When are you able to meet again to discuss possible interventions?
2 days about the same time. This works best.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll see you again in 2 days. I'll send you a follow-up email, and then I'll come back during this time in 2 days, and then we'll go through some interventions.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you. Good morning again, Ms. Tetra. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about some possible interventions today. And again, thanks for meeting. Like always, I appreciate your time to discuss how we can better support Michael. So today, I wanted to kind of focus on some possible intervention strategies that we can implement with Michael. But before we do that, do you have any questions so far about the process or about anything that you've seen or observed, or just any questions in general about what we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So during our last meeting, we agreed upon a few goals based on the data we collected. We decided that we want to decrease off-task behaviors from 8 occurrences to 2 occurrences in a class period. Or I think we said he was averaging about like 9 or 10 last we spoke. So we want to get them down to about 2. We also agreed that we want him to complete at least 70% of his assignments during class, and that would be him coming up from 18%. So does this sound about accurate to you?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for providing that data for me, by the way, and then helping come up with those goals. I think they're really reasonable, and if we develop a plan for Michael to meet them, things should run a little bit more smoothly in your classroom. When we talked last, you mentioned some interventions that you've already tried that didn't change his behaviors. You said that you met with him one-on-one. That did help increase some of his work completion, but it really didn't decrease any of the behaviors in the classroom. Took a lot of time out of your schedule, and during your observations, and mine as well, You reported you tried some reprimands and reminders, but they were also ineffective. And based on the data and observation, it seems like he engages in off-task behaviors to escape those non-preferred tasks. And at times he does receive the attention from you. It might be negative attention, but it seems that he might be feeding off that attention that you may be giving to him. So what are your thoughts on that? I know it's a lot, but I want to get your input too. So what are your thoughts?
I agree. He is constantly trying to escape any type of work completion when it comes to reading and writing. I do know that he can do the work. He's read to me in the past, so I know he's able to read the text. And also, when I'm working with him one on one, he actually can complete the questions, and I do give him attention, but it's to make sure to remind him to do his work. So.
Okay, so and that's great. Most students will respond with a reminder or reprimand, but for some reason, this tactic it wasn't really working with Michael. Sorry, you mentioned that he did have some decrease in behaviors when he was given an incentive, like free time on his Chromebook during your Fun Friday class. So, by the way, I really liked how you did implement with that into your classroom. I think it seemed to make a difference with Michael, especially.
Yeah, I did see changes in his performance.
Okay, so I'd like to examine the incentive you give him in class and suggest a strategy that you can use with Michael. I know in the past you've allowed Michael to be rewarded with the free time on his Chromebook, even if he completed half his work. I'd like to discuss an intervention strategy that's similar to what you're doing. That will have him earn his time on his Chromebook based on his on behavior tasks in class. This would be something he would participate on a daily basis. So not necessarily on those Fun Fridays, but it'd be an actual intervention that would be done daily. So it would be possible that he would be rewarded with his Chromebook if you were able to earn that time based on this particular intervention. The interventions is something you already do, like I said, and I think it would be an effective method for him. We would only need to make a few adjustments to the way you deliver it. Does this sound something you'd be interested in implementing?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay, great. Well, the intervention is called the token economy. Have you heard of it before?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So it is a strategy where the student receives a token after completing a specified academic task, or in Michael's case, using an appropriate behavior. So we want to focus on those behaviors that we like, that we want, okay? Anything that is visible and countable can be used as a token. So the token itself has no value. So it's not like money or anything like that, but it's traded for a backup reinforcement after a specific number of tokens are earned. Backup reinforcers are meaningful items, privileges, activities, food, time, items, toys, things like that. So the success of this token economy really relies on the appeal of the backup reinforcement, which for Michael, we both identified is free time on his Chromebook. The strategy is widely accepted as an evidence-based approach, and research has shown that it's effective in reducing a wide range of behavior problems. So for the tokens, most teachers have used tickets, poker chips in the past, things like that. Are these something, the tokens, are they something that you can get access to?
Yeah, I have a roll of tokens or tickets left over from one of our raffles, and so I can use those.
Okay, and then you know what? If you need something different, I can help you come up with something. But those will actually work well for what we're trying to do. So we'll choose the raffle tickets. We'll start there. We'll do the raffle tickets. So now that we know what kind of token we want to use, what I'd like to do now with you is kind of go over steps in establishing the token economy, model the steps for you, and then maybe have you practice and then provide some feedback. So let's start with the steps that you'll follow. It's important that we want to try to follow these steps for the intervention to be effective. I've written the steps down for you to follow. So I'm going to give you a sheet that you can kind of follow along with. You'll be able to keep it. So when you do implement this, you'll be able to have it at your disposal. Here it is for you right here. So what we'll do is I'll just go briefly over it really quick. So the first thing we want to do is determine which behaviors you're addressing with the token system, and speak with Michael about what behaviors you'll be rewarding a token for, and for how long, for the duration. So an example, you'll say, hey, Mike, hello, Mike. After having given you your reading assignment in class, I want to see that you're on task, which means when I look at you or pay attention to you, I want you to either be reading your book, discussing the readings with our group, or completing the written assignments. So you want to be specific to him on what behaviors that you're expecting in order for him to get this token, okay? So you can say, when I look at you and you're doing any of these behaviors, I'll award you with a ticket. If you're doing anything else when I look at you, you won't get the ticket. Okay, so that would be the first step, is just basically at the beginning, kind of giving him, preparing him, let him know that what's his expectations. And then you want to define that backup reinforcer. And we've already identified it. It's that free time on the Chromebook. So the second step would be like letting him know. So after you've earned your tickets, you can trade them in at the end of class for free time on your Chromebook. Okay. And then you kind of give them an example. You'll determine what his success is and how many tokens are needed for that backup reinforcer. So you tell them, so each token is worth 1 minute of free time, Michael. Free time earned will be given during the last minute of class. If you earn 1 ticket, you get 1 minute. 2 tickets is 2 minutes, 3 tickets is 3 minutes, and so on, okay? And since free time is only about 10 minutes at the end of class, you can earn a maximum of 10 tickets during class. So you want to make sure that you're very specific and let him know. And then once that happens, you'll go ahead and start your class, or you'll start that part of your class where he's giving his reading assignments. You'll give him his assignments, and then you're going to step forward, be providing him opportunities to respond to those specific target behaviors that we discussed. Okay, so, and at this point, I want you to take 1 to 2 minute intervals. So after about a minute, kind of look over if Michael's engaged in that behavior, on task behavior, you'll go ahead and give him a ticket and give him some praise. So an example would be a minute or two has passed, no longer than 2 minutes. I wanted it to kind of be delivered kind of on a regular schedule right now. So after about 1 or 2 minutes, you kind of look over, look at Michael. He's engaged in inappropriate behavior. You immediately tell him, hey, Michael, good job, and then give him the ticket. So good job, Michael, and then give them the ticket right away. And then you want to continue that until the student has earned all the tokens up to 10 during class. This is step 5. And then after the assignment is completed and he's earned all the tokens, what you want to do is you want to kind of reinforce, kind of wrap things up in the end. You want to say, and then give him his backup reinforcer. So you want to say, hey, good job, Michael. You've earned 10 tokens today. So there's 10 minutes left of class. You have 10 minutes of free time on your Chromebook. And then you trade those tokens and you'll get it back. Okay. I know it's a lot, so we're going to kind of try to practice this right now. So did you have any questions at any part of it?
So if the student wanted to save his tickets.
Okay. So like save it for the next day. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we give him his backup reinforcer after he's produced, the desired behaviors. So he has to use them for our intervention purposes. He'll trade those tickets in after that period of time, after the time is from the time you give him instructions to the time he turns into his assignment. Okay, so reserve that last 10 minutes of class. What do you do for those last 10 minutes usually?
I let the students read independently.
Okay, so what we'll do just for him, since he's already read that part for him, or he's actually engaged in that time of reading, we'll let him engage in that reward time. So if he doesn't, say if he only has 5 minutes, you would have him read independently for 5 minutes and then give him the 5 minutes he earned. But I want him to use those tokens during class, during that session. Okay. Let's see. So very good questions. I think that's something that's a very good question. So did I answer it correctly for you, or did I answer it the way you needed it to be answered?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay. So let's practice. Okay. So you'll be Michael and then I will be the teacher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the steps, just kind of like just we just did. So hey, Michael, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, Michael. So I want to do something with you today. After I give you your reading assignment, I want to see you on task. Okay, it's very important I see you on task, which means when I see you, I want you to either be reading your book, discussing the reading with our group, and completing your writing assignments. Okay, so whenever I look at you, if you're doing one of those things, I'm going to give you a ticket. If you're doing anything else, you're not going to earn anything else. You won't get a ticket. Okay. So what these tickets are is that when you earn your tickets, you can trade them in at the end of class for free time on your Chromebook. You like free time on your Chromebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how would you say if you're earning time on your Chromebook after class, you can actually get up to 10 minutes on your Chromebook at the end of class instead of when we independently read? How does that sound?
Good.
Okay, good. So one ticket is 1 minute. Okay, so two tickets would be 2 minutes, and then so on, all the way up to 10 minutes, because we only have 10 minutes at the end of class that you're able to use them. You have to use them the day that you get them. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I give Michael your reading assignment. So we'll do an example of him being on task. So you're just going to be Michael and you're going to act like you're on task. So after 1 minute goes around, I'll look at you, say, hey, good job, Michael. Here's the ticket. So I'll give you a ticket. Okay. So say another time, get up out of your seat. So like right now, you'll be getting out of your seat. You can stand up this is just like practice. So you can stand up out of your seat right now. So if I stood and then I came back, or you're not paying attention, I wouldn't give you a ticket. Okay.
Right.
So then I'm looking at you, and then you're reading your book. Say, hey, good job, Michael. You're reading your book. Here's a ticket. Okay. So you want to actually recognize the behavior too. So make sure if he's reading his book, you want to say, good job reading your book. If he's participating in group, hey, good job participating in group, and then give him his ticket. Okay. So now it's the end of class. So you want to tell him, okay, hey, Mike, you got 10 minutes left. It looks like you've earned eight minutes. You want to trade those in now?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see those tickets. So you got 8 minutes, and I'm going to set a timer. You can get on free time on your Chromebook. You can play games, and you can do appropriate websites approved by the school. Okay. Good job. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Okay. And then that's that. And then what you do is you would actually monitor after class. You'd see how much work he actually completed, and then you tally up the appropriate behaviors, or how many times he was off task. Okay, so I'm going to let you practice. I'm going to do.
What am I counting his off task by the amount of tickets he didn't receive?
Right. So like say that. Right. So you're counting. You're going to be doing a couple of things. You're going to be monitoring the things that he's doing positive, and then also any off-task behaviors that you see. So if you look over, and during that time you look over in that 1 to 2 minutes and you don't give him a ticket, that's going to be a hash mark that you're going to put down. So, hey, I looked at Michael. He wasn't engaged in appropriate behavior. It was actually an inappropriate off-task behavior. So instead of giving him the ticket, you do the hash mark on that paper. Okay. Does that sound doable?
Yeah.
So after the end of the period, you should either have given him a ticket when you looked over, or marking down a hash mark that he didn't meet that behavior. Okay. So let's practice. So I'm going to be Michael, and then you're going to actually discuss the token economy with me. And this is going to go on every day that you do the actual intervention. Okay. So all these steps need to be followed each day.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So you're Michael.
Yes.
Okay, so hey, Michael, so I want to try something with you, and let's see how this works, okay? I'm going to have you do your reading assignments in class, and I want to see if you're on task, which means that when I look at you, you either have to be reading or discussing the reading with your group, or completing the writing assignments. And when I look at you and you're doing those things, I'm going to award you with a ticket. And if you are doing anything else when I look at you, you will not be given a ticket. So what the tickets earn you is a minute of free time on your Chromebook, for each ticket.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you can earn up to 10 tickets a day, which means that you can have up to 10 minutes of free time on your Chromebook at the end of class each day. You have to use those tickets at the end of class, and each ticket is worth a minute. And since free time is the last 10 minutes of class, you can earn a maximum of 10 tickets during
Okay.
class. So then I'm going to,
So let's practice that now. So that then I'll be just like, okay, so have them clarify it. So, okay, so every time I do good, I get a ticket.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then at the end of class, I can have up to 10 minutes if I get 10 tickets.
Yes.
Okay. So
You
then,
have
yeah,
to use it that day. You have to use it the day you receive it.
so I can get free time every day.
You can get free time every day, depending on the amount of tickets you have. Each ticket is worth a minute.
Okay. And all I have to do is just be doing my assignment and doing my reading. Okay. I can do that. And then you would tell them, then we would start the assignment. So let's go through that really quick. So now I'm reading my assignment. You looked over, and then what would you do?
So now I'm gonna give him opportunities to earn his tickets. So anytime I'll be looking to see if he's engaging in appropriate behavior. And if he is, I will walk over to him, hand him a ticket, give him praise. So great job, Michael. You're doing your reading. Awesome. Here's a ticket.
Thank you.
If I look over and he's not.
Okay, so I'm gonna be not looking. I'm not doing anything. I'll be on Chromebook.
So I will document the hashtag and then let him know of his off-task behavior. Hey, Michael, I see that you're not doing your reading assignment. Please start reading. You will not be earning a ticket.
Okay. You know what you can do is let's ignore the off-task behavior. So we'll be instead of reprimanding him, let's just ignore the off-task behavior. Just mark it down. Just a hashtag that that he's off task. And then as soon as you see him back on task, give him another ticket. Okay. So I'm off task. You're not going to say anything. You're not going to reprimand. But then I go immediately to my assignment. What would you do? Right.
Then I would walk over and say, great job, Michael. I see that you're doing your writing assignment. Here's a ticket.
Yes, perfect. So that's what you would do. Okay. So now we're at the end of class. Time's up on the assignment. There's 2 minutes left. And then you would follow through with the final step.
So Michael, we have 10 minutes left of class. How many tickets do you have?
Today I got 6.
Okay, so I'm going to have you read for 4 more minutes, and then you can get on your Chromebook and use the last 6 minutes with your tickets to have some free time.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. And then you would give him his free time on his Chromebook. Okay. So you did good. I know it takes a while to kind of get used to. Did you want to do it, go through it one more time, or do you think you kind of got it already?
Yeah, no, I think I got it.
Okay, perfect. So I just really quick want to review some information. So you mentioned he's off task after giving him an independent reading assignment. You want to implement it right after you give him the assignment. So you want to make sure you do that. Make sure you go from step 1 all the way down to step 5. You want to do that on each time that you put the intervention in place. Okay. Let's see. Was there anything that you see as barriers that might prevent something like this to be implemented fully?
Just a few things. The first thing would be that I'm supposed to be giving him tickets every 1 to 2 minutes if he seems to be on task. If he seems to be on task, maybe let's say for the first 10 to 15 minutes and he already utilized all tickets. After that, he may now have earned all his tickets, so he's not going to pay attention for the rest of the class time. Should I stagger the time a little bit more?
I would keep it to maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I know it's about 30 minutes from the time you give him his assignments to the end. So that's why I kind of put in there 1 to 2 minutes. You want to kind of at first, you want to really catch them in those good behaviors. So The ideal thing would just be immediately, right when you see them like do something on task, you want to give it to them immediately. But yeah, eventually you do want to kind of stagger them and kind of make it to
lengthen the time.
right. But for right now, what we really want to do is any positive behaviors you see, you want to immediately give it to them. Okay.
And the other barrier might be other students watching this happen and also wanting to participate in this type of reward system.
Right. So that, and it might be something that you want to implement with them later. But that's a good point to consider. The main obstacle teachers have with any implementation is, the other students kind of being aware of it. So what you can do is you can actually kind of discuss with Michael in private. And then you can also, what's going to happen. So that way you're not drawing too much attention, or you can kind of tell the class, hey, you know what, I'm going to try something. If it works, maybe I'll try it with some more students, but for right now, I'm just going to pick a few students to actually to participate in this activity. So that way they kind of know what's going on. So that way they're not asking too many questions. Does that work? Does that, you at least, you'll have something actually of the backup to know if that does happen, you kind of have that to say to them to kind of overcome that barrier. Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right. So you know what? I think we put together a good plan. And this is possible because of all your efforts in collecting the data and practicing this with me. So going forward, we'll need to have some way of knowing whether our plan is working. So let's continue to track that data that we've been collecting, continue using the data tracking sheet that I gave you. So anytime he's off task, when you look over at him, you want to kind of use those as hash marks on that form of off task behaviors. Does that seem doable to you?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Do you have any other questions about the data collection, what we're collecting?
No, it's the same data, right?
Right. Yes. Same data. And then also the work completion, which you said you already have on Google Classroom. So hopefully that it's not too much of a hassle for you to collect that. Okay. So let's go ahead and just collect that data for another 5 days just to see what the difference is, if there is any, of his behaviors and his work completion. I'll come in to observe a couple days next week as well. I'll be looking for a few things. I'll be collecting data on any other behaviors I might notice, some barriers that I may notice that we didn't discuss, that we can discuss at our next meeting, and if the steps of the implementation are being followed. So I really want to make sure that you're following those steps, because since it is an evidence-based practice and it's meant to actually be implemented with those steps, I want to make sure that those steps are being completed. So I want to track, kind of have that being tracked. So for you as well, on those days that you implemented, if you can also kind of do a self-reflection. If you did follow all 5 steps, you would say, hey, 100%, I did 5 of 5. If you only did 4 of the 5 steps, you would say that you did 4 out of 5 steps. That would be 80% and so on. So it just kind of take a mental note. And let's plan on meeting in a couple weeks on April 8th, same time and same place. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about what I was talking about, doing the steps and the percentages?
No.
Okay, so yeah, we just want to see how much of the implementation is being done on this and how you're implementing it. So that's why it's important that we gather that data too, because we want to see, if the implementation is 100%, what the integrity is. Okay. Any questions? Okay, and then I'm available by email if you have any questions, or if you need to give me a call, you have a way to contact me. So we'll meet again. We'll take a look at the data, and then we'll discuss the progress. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you.
Okay, got it.
Anything else? Are you good?
Okay.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, if you do have questions, feel free to call me or email me, and then we can meet again. If you need more practice, we can meet again before then if you like.
Okay, great. See you in a few weeks.
All right. Thank you. Hello, Ms. Tatro. Thanks for meeting with me again today. We're just going to meet really briefly. I appreciate your time. The goal of this meeting is to look at the data we've collected since implementing that token economy that we did with you and Michael. And also, thanks for meeting with me again last week. I know you needed to do some extra training on it. So I was glad that I was able to do that extra training with you. By the way, how did that go?
It went really well, actually. Over the course of the few days, I really noticed some positive changes with Michael. And I had one day where the entire class was a bit off. We had come back from an assembly. So I know I forgot to prep Michael a bit before I started the implementation. But other than that, it was really easy to do the token economy with Michael. I had a clipboard with me so that I could track his behavior. I was also able to give you his work completion rates at the end of the week. Did you get them?
Yeah, I did. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I know you're super busy, so I appreciate you taking that extra time to prepare that. So I feel that once we get the hang of the system, it will run a lot more smoothly for you, especially prepping the data, and it'll come more quickly. So during the last two times I did observe you in class, I was really impressed with the implementation. Both times I marked that you implemented the system with 100% integrity, which, as I said before, is really important. So I put together a graph to kind of give you some feedback. So we're going to take a look at that. And then I just wanted to discuss before I display the graph, there's a couple of different outcomes whenever we do an implementation like this. There's several different outcomes that we can expect. One is you have high integrity, treatment integrity. You're implementing at 100%, and then we have positive outcomes. That's the one that we want to see, and that we assume that the positive outcome is due to the intervention. So that's what we want to see. There's low treatment integrity, where sometimes teachers don't really adhere to the steps, and then we also have positive outcomes. So when we have something like that, we can't assume the outcome is due to the intervention, because the implementation wasn't done fully. So there's that outcome that we can take a look at. Then you have low treatment integrity with no change, and we can't really say if the intervention is effective enough because it wasn't really implemented fully. Some other things that we might see is you have high treatment integrity, you're implementing it fully, and then we'll see Michael not doing any change at all, or he's actually doing worse. From that, we can assume that it might be likely that the intervention is actually making his behaviors worse, and then we'll have to take a look at something different. And then we have a low treatment integrity, it's not being implemented fully, and then a negative change. And then again, we can't really say if it's due to our intervention because it's not really implemented. So we really can't make a determination either or. So just keep in mind when we're reviewing this graph, I want you to keep in mind that those are some of the possibilities that we'll run into, okay? But in this case, I really want to show you what the data says about this implementation. So if you can see this graph here, it's our token economy and intervention. This is all the data that you've collected that I put into the graph. So along the bottom, we have the days that we've been actually monitoring Michael. And then up here, we have occurrences and just basically overall percentages of his occurrences, his work completion, and the treatment integrity. So occurrences are going to be the blue line. Mm-hmm. Orange line is going to be his work completion. And then his treatment integrity is here is how you implemented the program, okay? So let's take a look at your baseline data. So this line is going to separate the first 5 days of which there's no intervention. We're just kind of monitoring Michael. You can see here that most of his behaviors were, either 10, on average 10 off task. Then we had that one Friday where he was giving you some work, and then his off-task behaviors were kind of low. And that's how when we determined, hey, he likes the computer, he likes the Chromebook. Let's do an intervention with the Chromebook, okay? So we discussed our intervention, and then right here, this line kind of separates when we started intervention. So as you can see, day 5, that first day you did your intervention, you had 100% treatment integrity. You were giving the implementation fully. and he actually dropped those behaviors down to 5, right? And then he had a 60% work completion. So from the first day, it looks like he's actually making progress. It's almost the same as that day that you gave the reward for the class on that Fun Friday. But take a look the next day, same thing, 60% work completion. It dropped down actually to 4 occurrences. And then I noticed on that day, you put on your self-reflection sheet that you had 80% implementation. Do you remember, did you leave out a step or what happened that day?
That was the day of the assembly, like I talked about. So I did give him the tickets and utilized most of the steps. What I did not do was I did not reinforce what the behavior was he was getting the ticket for.
Okay, so I know that's when you had actually called me to do like a retraining. So I did hope that retraining did help. It looks like you actually implemented the other days fully. So was there any other questions that you had about that?
No.
Okay, and then look, when you do 100% implementation, he was actually increasing his work completion. On the final 2 days, he had like 75% completion and then only 2 occurrences. So it looks like that so far, just based off the data you've collected, we do see some high treatment integrity and then some positive outcomes. So do you see anything that you want to discuss, or am I covering everything, answering your questions?
No, I've seen positive changes and I'm really excited for Michael in my class.
Okay, so perfect. So based off this data or these data, it appears that the treatment integrity is high, like we said, and there's positive change. His off-task behaviors are decreasing and his work completion is increasing. It appears that Michael's on target to meet his goals, which is, we agreed two occurrences and completing at least 70% of his assignments. But what I want to do is I'd like to track the data just a few more days to make solid determination if the token economy is in fact effective. But so far, it's really looking good. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's straightforward and I'm starting to feel more comfortable with it. And yeah, it works.
Okay, great. So I wanted you to know that you can contact me anytime for questions, just kind of like how you did last week. Or if you need any practice again with any of the steps. The last time we met, you did really well. So I know there was some things we needed to clarify, and I think we ironed those out. So I'll be checking with you briefly throughout the next week. So I'm just going to kind of pop in, collect a little bit of data, and then I'd like to meet up next week. So track for like 5 more days and see what our data looks like then, and we'll determine at that time, if Michael is meeting his goals or if he needs more work or whatnot. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks again. Let's continue to track the data the same way as you did before. We'll do it for another 5 days, and then we can discuss the next steps at our next meeting. We'll meet the same time, same place next week.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll see you then. Hello again, Ms. Tatro. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks again, meeting with me again today, taking that time. So this meeting is basically just to evaluate how things are going. A couple of the goals we want to get out of this meeting is just to determine whether Michael's met his goals that we established. We want to evaluate if this treatment plan or this implementation is effective for him. And then just kind of discuss any type of modifications if we need to, or where we're going to go from here, just based off our data. Okay. So last time we met, we discussed the data we both gathered from Michael and determined that he was making significant progress on his goals. We both decided that we would track it for another week to determine if the token economy implemented was significant contributor to his progress. So I have his data for this week. And thank you again for sending that to me, by the way. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Let me go ahead and display what I have here. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so here we have basically Michael's baseline. This is before we did the intervention. This is the days that we met for last week. So this line separates the new data that I just got from you. Okay. So first 5 days, you can tell his occurrences were averaging 9-10 occurrences. His work completion was anywhere from 0 to 50, a little bit higher on that one Friday that you did. Once we put implementation into place, you can see that his behaviors were dropping. They actually started off at the week 5 occurrences, and we got them down to 2. Treatment integrity, you were implementing it 100%. You had that one day, but I think afterwards we did meet the day after. You had 80% integrity. We kind of went over the steps again, and we kind of practiced a little bit more. And then when we met, we wanted to go ahead and just kind of track it. So this is the new data. So 100% integrity. You're implementing it 100%. You're following all the steps. You're doing that regularly, right? So every time you're just following those 5 steps. But look at this. We got his behaviors were off tasks are averaging, 2 occurrences, which is what we wanted, right? 1 or 2. And then his work completion, we got him from 18% is what we were saying. We got him down actually up well above 70%. On some days, he was actually doing 85% on that. So it looks like, that just based off these data, he's making really good progress. What is your take on everything?
Yeah, I think it's been great. I don't have to meet with Michael during lunch anymore, or after school. It gives me a lot of time back. And so I am really happy with the results.
That's very good to hear. I really wanted to say that you also did an amazing job just implementing this fully, and then asking, the questions and then just meeting together and discussing the progress. 100% implementation all week last week, and that's great. I know it wouldn't be possible to have the results we have without you putting forth that effort. So thank you for that. I know it takes a lot of hard work, but your dedication as a parent, and I just want to celebrate that with you. It's really it really goes to show your part in the success of this. So
thank you. I feel very accomplished.
okay, good. You should. So now that our data shows that Michael has met his long-term goals and decreasing his off-task behaviors and increasing his work completion, we can safely make that determination that the token economy is effective. And what are your thoughts?
I agree. I have seen a lot of progress in Michael, and I have a couple of other students in my other classes I'd like to try it on as well.
Oh, perfect. So I think, and I think you pretty much got this pretty much down. With that being said, Michael's behaviors have improved so much. We can start pulling back a little bit on how often we meet. So kind of fading the consulting out. I'm comfortable doing that mainly because you've done such a great job implementing the intervention, and you've demonstrated that you can keep track of both the intervention and Michael's behaviors well. So instead of meeting so frequently, let's plan to meet once every 3 weeks. So right now we're meeting once a week. Let's push it to every 3 weeks. If things continue to look good, we can start scaling that down to once a month. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan.
Okay, perfect. So great. Let's set up a brief meeting 3 weeks from today. We can review additional data that you collect, see if Michael's behaviors continue to be maintained, see if maybe we need to look at maybe his reinforcements. Sometimes reinforcements, the backup reinforcement kind of loses its effectiveness. So maybe if we do see changes in behaviors going the way we don't want them to see, maybe we can take a look at that backup reinforcer and try to identify something else we can use the tokens to exchange for. Don't hesitate to email or call me if you have any questions or see any other barriers that come up that we didn't see before. And I'll pop in and check up on you just once in a while, just to make sure things are going smoothly, and make sure that you have my continued support throughout this whole process. How does that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, great. We'll see you in 3 weeks. Take care.